fair number of companies out there who are looking to, they don't necessarily have a plan today for their TLD, but they suspect, but they don't want to get left behind, and they suspect that there may be some benefits in the future, but they don't know exactly what they are. And for those TLDs, it certainly is possible to, you have to do a full-up application nevertheless, because you're going to go through exactly the same evaluation process and the testing and so forth that you need to do in order to get this fully delegated. And you're also going to need to maintain a few registrations on the internet on an ongoing basis and pay ICANN's ongoing fees, which I think are $25,000 a year and 25 cents a unit after that. But that's a very viable strategy if you're not sure, because you never know when this window is going to open again, and you have to be ready. I mean, it may not open for 5 years, it may not open for 10 years. Nobody knows when the next window is going to be. So if you have any thoughts at all that you may potentially need one of these, that it may be a benefit, or you may need to do it defensively, you know, at least get in there and apply and use this basically as a shelf brand, as a shelf TLD.
Other thoughts on that?
Yeah, my understanding, and guys correct me if I'm wrong, is that you do need to demonstrate that you're actually going to use this in the application and give examples. And then I think you have a 12-month period once it's been turned on. Is it?
I think it's 2 years.
Yeah, so you do actually eventually have to do it. Yeah, and it could be as simple as using it internally for your intranet, but you do have to demonstrate its use.
Yeah, no, that's right. But to come to Roland's point, people could basically register 10 domain names.
And just,
that's past the point.
You can't park them like
you just, no, it's not a sort of park the trademark type approach.
Yeah, Paul's right. You just sites up and that works. Sorry, Carl.
You know, no, I was just going to say, you know, one of the conversations we have with clients, it's an awful lot of money to spend and park and put in a drawer. And, you know, I believe ICANN has instituted some very good protocols to be able to ensure that someone, you know, who isn't really Nike is going to wind up with .Nike. And, you know, the conversation we have with clients is, why not go a step further? Because when you apply, you're actually not only, you're defining how the service is going to be used, what the intent is. And if you define it in your application as, we're really only going to do this, this, and this, but then you change 18 months later when you really say, oh my gosh, I want to now open this up to consumers to have access to. I want to now open this up in new and interesting ways. My understanding is it's a reapplication, or you're back in the queue again, and you there's additional costs and additional processes.
Yeah, I actually don't think that's the case, Carl. I think once your TLD is delegated, you own it. And as long as you're not violating your ICANN contract, you can do almost anything you want with it. I mean, you've got to maintain security and stability.
Doesn't the application require you to specify what you're doing with it?
Yes, it does. It asks you for a business plan, and it asks you for use. Go ahead, Paul.
The contract provisions will be most harsh on the communities. So if you're putting yourself forward as the apple growers, take the .apple example, then the contract terms will be quite specific. That's who you're allowed to sell the apple to. I think for brand names, if you're not saying you're a community, you're not actually saying I'm a community as part of the application, the contract terms will not be as specific.
So you'll have more leeway.
You could apply for a closed and then maybe switch to an open?
I don't think ICANN think this phrase closed and open is a marketing term. It's not an ICANN contractual term.
Okay.
Yeah, ICANN has generic community teams.
You could apply saying, well, we're applying for this. We're going to use it internally to manage our different resellers and our partners and our intranets. And then 1 or 2 years later say, you know what, we actually do think this fits our consumer strategy. We're going to open this up to as a consumer-facing site. That would be...
That's my understanding. And if there was a need to change, and if my understanding is incorrect, the process would be that you would go back to ICANN and ask for an amendment to the contract. So you wouldn't necessarily have to be going back to a rebid process. You could actually go back and ask for an amendment to the contract.